Coach, what kind of opportunity is it this week coming out of the Temple game and with the bye week to really prepare on some of the things that you've really looked at to get ready for this real onslaught for the end of the season?
Yeah, and we talked about the way that the buys lay out, Scott, during the year, and it comes at a good time for us. Um, it's great to be 6-0 going in the bye week and have everything out in front of us still. Um, but we need it. We're banged up. There's some personnel things we got to work through, and we need the extra week to do that. And it's a great time for us to really. We spent the entire day today just going through the game on Saturday and evaluating everything that we're doing as coaches. How can we help our players and really evaluating personnel? And so it's a good time to be able to do that, kind of step back and give our players off entirely today. So, but yeah, no, the timing of it is really good. And there's we're not as far along as I hope we would be from, the way we're playing right now. I think we can get there, but it helps to have the bye in order to try to accelerate that a little bit more, Scott. When you're not going to get ready to play a game this week, there's a lot of things we got to attack here in the bye week and figure out and get a lot better at. Um, and that starts with the coaching staff. How can we help our players get to where we need to be and where we want to go? And so it comes at a good time.
I would imagine the execution you want to see, but kind of
Mhm.
what you're talking about, the messaging to get to that end.
Yeah, the messaging is always being the best version of ourselves. And I think you look at that game on Saturday, and we were not that. I think we're very fortunate to come out of there with a win. And that's a good Temple football team. Um, and we did not play particularly well, especially on defense, and didn't play well for a half. Offensively. And you look at that first half, and that was about as bad as it could have gone for us. I think probably should have been down more than we were at halftime. But there's so many little bitty things at this point in the season that we've got to be better at to not be in those situations from an execution standpoint. We're not executing at the level I would love to see us execute on, specifically on the defense side of the football. And so we got to really look at why is that the case? And it starts with us, right? It starts with us, and then we got to really look at what we're doing, how we're doing it, how much we're doing. Got to look at personnel, all those things. But it's always about just trying to get better. Um, and our guys we've got phenomenal young men in this program. They care, they work, they want to be good, and we got the ability to be a really good football team. Don't think we are right now, so we got to figure out a way to make that happen. And so that's been all the conversation, today and this morning. How can we get better moving forward? And like I said, it starts with us. How can we do better as a coaching staff to help these guys?
And also moving forward, kind of a wake up call for the team to see when they're dominated with time of possession, how dangerous that can be.
Sure. Yeah. We had 17 offensive snaps in the first half and 50 defensive snaps, and that's not obviously not the formula for success around here. And so when you can't get off the field on defense and you go three and out offensively, that's a bad combination for anybody. But especially for us, we're not going to win many games that way. And like I said, we were fortunate to only be down 10 points, at halftime. But to go, I'm really proud of our players. When to go on the road against a good Temple football team, after I hope that playing Air Force we didn't have a hangover from that, but you can't really ignore that. That's an emotional, physical game that we've historically not played well after that game. You look at the last, what was it, 20 years or so, Straws, we're like
11-9. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's not great, but and then to be in a hole, I don't know if a year ago if we were in that hole, we could have dug ourselves out of it. It speaks to the character and the leadership on our football team to go out there and not play well at all in the first half and then come back the way we did. And it's a credit to our players and their fight and their resilience. And I think that's what I'm most proud of. Not the way we played, but the way our guys fought, found a way. I think that's the difference in our football team right now than it was a year ago.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Scott.
Tim Nolan. Again, we're doing 3 questions each. Tim Nolan.
Ron, although you keep saying you want to be closer to your ceiling at this point, to win some of the games in the fashion you have, the 14-0 deficit at Tulsa, most recently at Temple, how well can that bode for the future of this program as you look forward to the back half of the season?
Yeah, as much as you hate being in a deficit during a game or something like that, you hate being in those situations. It's great for your football team, especially when you're able to fight through that adversity and you're able to come from behind, overcome turnovers, overcome some penalties. But yeah, no, I think it's great for us to have gone through that. I think our guys they expect to win, and they're never gonna quit. I mean, these guys are fighters. They're gonna fight till the end, but I've been proud of the way we've been able to kind of find a way when things aren't going great. Um, there's no sense of panic. I thought we did press a little bit, especially in that first half on Saturday when things weren't going well. But what we need to have is the ability to play the next play, regardless of what happened on the previous snap, just to get locked in, not let that play affect what happens on the next play, or what's going on in the course of the game affect what's happening in the moment. So that's really something that I think we've done a pretty good job of. I didn't think we were great at that on Saturday, but it's all right. Play the next play as well as you can play. Don't worry about the last play. Um, and we talk about that a lot, and I think our players have done a pretty good job of that. And that's something we got to continue to harp on um, and and for our players to buy into. So when we do that, we're a pretty good football team.
Back-to-back weeks where your senior kicker, Nathan Kirkwood, was a big difference in the way the game went. Just how much has he meant to you in this program?
Well, the kick he made, I think it was 48-yard field goal on Saturday. Tim was huge. Obviously, that allowed us to eventually win the game. But yeah, and that, like I've said all year, I think he's the guy that I trust a lot more at this point than I did a year ago. He's gotten a lot better, and I think he's got some confidence right now. So it's great to see him. The last 2 games really hit key field goals for us, and we got a lot of confidence in him right now. So does our team.
And then after the game, the post-game presser, you make a habit of doing this after every game, but you shout out the opposing coach and just the way they run their program. How much of that is the way you were raised, and how much do you think it's just the gratitude you've built up in learning how hard it is to be a successful FBS coach?
Well, it's probably a little bit of both. I don't just blow smoke. I'm not going to say a coach does a great job if he doesn't. I don't believe that. But if you look at who Temple is right now compared to a year ago when we played them, I mean, it's a huge difference. From a personnel standpoint, the way they're coached, it's a good football team. I think he's done a nice job there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wags.
What did you see from watching the tape in terms of the defense? It seemed like, especially in the secondary, there were some busts, just like there were against Air Force, where guys came wide open. And What were you seeing, Coach?
Yeah, well, we didn't tackle particularly well, Wags, especially in that first half. I think we got a little tired. We were on the field a bunch in the first half. I think what Temple motions or shifts about 75% of the time on first and second down, and we struggled to handle that. And I think that goes back to taking a hard look at ourselves as coaches and how much we're carrying into a game, what we're asking of our players, making sure that we get to call in earlier and some of those type things. And we were reeling a little bit in the first half, but what it all comes down to is execution. We busted some day one install stuff, I mean, multiple times in the first half. And it's a combination of a lot of different things. I think we have 7 new starters on defense. So we got to make sure, what we're asking them to do. We got to get the call in. We got to let them get lined up, identify the formations, communicate in the correct way, and let them go play. It felt like we were kind of on our heels, in that first half a little bit. And there were some miscommunications on some day one type stuff. Didn't handle the motions and the shifts very well, and just didn't play downhill because of that, especially in the first half. Really didn't play great the second half either, but we settled in a little bit, I thought. But I think we got to simplify some things, Wags, is what it comes down to. And we got to take a hard look at our personnel. We're not getting production from certain areas that we need to get more production from. So that's what we're doing we've been doing today, and trying to get our best players on the field and give them a chance to be successful. And that's what it boils down to.
When you talk about simplifying things, how does that look? I mean, in what ways? Do you just kind of reduce the number of play calls and get it more
Yep.
streamlined, or
Yep. Try to reduce the number of play calls, number of adjustments. Like I said, making sure we get our call in earlier, so our guys can communicate and see what's going on. As a coordinator, you try to be perfect on every call, and sometimes you're not going to be. But Coach Volk and I talked about this morning, and it's hard when you call something and it's the right call, and it doesn't work because we don't run it correctly, right? And then you're reeling a little bit. But it's a combination of a bunch of different things, Wags. But at the end of the day, you got great kids that care, that play hard, that prepare the right way, and it's all about giving them the best chance to be successful. And so the first thing you want to do is take a look at yourselves and what we're doing. Make sure we're not doing too much. Make sure that our kids can go play fast, and that's what we got to. That's what we got to do.
So with the missed tackles, and it wasn't just defense. The one punt, Carlson had that guy back in the corner at like the 5-yard line, and I think he broke like 8 tackles on that punt return. But how do you fix that? Is there any particular way to, and how much is being tired, being out there a lot, lead to missed tackles?
Yeah, well, it certainly has something to do with it. I think on the punt you're referring to, I think their returner 17, JoJo, is one of the best in the country. I think he's had 2 get called back this year and he took to the house, and that was a concern for us going to the game. Just can we tackle him? I thought Carlson did a great job of punting. I mean, he was booming the ball, putting it on the numbers right where we want it. And our punt unit on that particular one, I thought was really sharp. We covered our lanes, we spilled the football, did everything we were supposed to do. We didn't get it tackled, but the effort was there. The integrity of the coverage was correct. We just didn't get him on the ground. That's partly their guy being a really, really good player and making something happen. A lot of guys have struggled to cover punts with him returning it.
Wyatt Kopelman.
Hey, Coach, with the offense only getting the 17 offensive snaps in the first half, you mentioned how much of what we saw from Blake late, especially with how calm he stayed and executing that final drive, speaks to his leadership and ability to manage the moment, even when the offense's rhythm wasn't always there early.
Yeah, speaks well to it. Obviously, it just goes back to he's a guy that doesn't panic, doesn't press. I think the second half we just say let's go run our offense. We don't have to panic here. We don't have to be in a hurry. We're down 10 points. We gotta run our offense, execute at a high level, and find a way to get off the field on defense. And we were able to do that. But yeah, I think Blake did some really good things on Saturday. We certainly didn't play a perfect game. A couple of misreads, in the first half. But there were some missed throws in the second half. He's certainly not perfect, but he is a special football player, and he's the guy that you want the ball in his hands when the game's on the line, for obvious reasons.
Was getting Blake to this level as a runner part of the long-term plan when Coach Cronic came aboard last year, or has his effectiveness on the ground evolved more naturally within the offense?
No, I think it's the way we recruit Wyatt is you want a quarterback that's a dual threat guy. And you can develop a guy as a passer, the more you can develop him as a runner. That's a God-given kind of a natural ability that he has. Going into last year, I didn't know that he was going to be as an effective of a runner as he is, obviously. But he's, for what we do offensively, he's exactly what you want back there. His ability to throw it and run it. He's a true dual threat guy. Obviously very smart and intelligent, and yeah, he's doing both really well.
And it looked like Evan Simon and Temple wanted to challenge the secondary early in that first quarter. How do you think your defense can learn from that experience as it prepares to face Volt Camp and FAU, one of the conference's top passing offenses right now?
Yeah, well, I think it's how can we learn as a unit, including our staff, and it goes back to what I talked about a little bit earlier, and simplifying some things, and the way we prepare during the week for those games. But yeah, we're gonna face some pretty prolific offenses moving forward, and obviously we got to get better in the back end with our coverage, and it all starts with getting lined up, getting our eyes in the right place, and all being on the same page. And there were several times where we were not on the same page on Saturday, and that just can't happen. the formula for us on defense is to stop the run and not give up explosive plays in the back end. You know, when we do that, we're pretty good. You know, when we don't, we're not. And so that's what we got to focus on.
Thanks, Coach.
Joe Miller.
Hey, Coach. I was going to ask a little bit about, you touched on Jacob, but just wanted to touch on his job so far this season. You know, coming into the year, kind of unknown quantity, and for the most part, it seems like he's done an excellent job for you guys. Can you kind of just overall evaluate him so far this season?
Yeah, yeah. I think he's been outstanding. You know, we only punted 11 times, maybe in the first 4 games. He hadn't had a lot of opportunities, which is a good thing, right? And early on, you could tell there were some nerves there, Joe, starting his first games. And now that he's settled in, he's confident with the protection, all those things. Like his ability to place the ball, like he's got a big leg, as you saw on Saturday, but his ability to put it where we're asking him to put it is really exceptional, I think. And I think he's just going to get better and better. But you know, he's been a real bright spot for us, and we felt good about him going into the season. But he gets better every game. So I can't be more excited about the job that he's doing and the direction we're heading in, you know, with him.
Was there any sort of big change philosophically or anything on offense at halftime where it was just like, let's settle down and let's get some first downs?
Yeah, exactly that, Joe. There's nothing to panic about. You just got to go out and execute. You know, and they do a nice job on defense. I think that I said this going into the week that, you know, Brian Smith is a really good coordinator. You know, they're talented defensively. And so we knew it was it's a good defense, I think, that we saw Saturday. And you know, we just didn't execute at a real high level in the first half. And, you know, had a penalty that stalled one of our drives and didn't have many opportunities. I think there's 4 possessions like we had, you know, in the first half. Went down, scored on the first one, right?
Yep.
And 4 plays, and then just couldn't move the sticks. And then obviously, on the flip side of that, we couldn't get off the field on defense, so it was a bad combination. They took the ball first, and so you know you're probably only going to get 4 or 5 possessions in that first half, and we just weren't able to capitalize on the other 4 or the other 3 possessions that we had. I'm not sure what the time of possession was at halftime, but it was pretty insane.
Yeah, I think we had 22-8 or something like that, close to that.
Yeah. I mean, time of possession is something we have to win here to win football games.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier you wanted to take a hard look at personnel. Is that something that you want to like accomplish this week? Like you want to and have that sort of set going into FAU, or do you think you're looking at these next 2 weeks as sort of going through all of that?
No, it needs to happen now because as we go into practice tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday, like those changes need to be in place of the things that we're looking at, so those guys can go get reps. So yeah, it's an immediate deal for us.
Thanks, Coach.
You got it.
7:51 in the first half. We had the ball. 7:51. Mitchell.
That was
Coach.
off by 9 seconds.
Mitch Northam from Mitch Northam from SB Nation. I just wanted to, you touched a little bit earlier on Blake as a runner. I wanted to ask you about him as a passer. I think a lot of his statistics are up this year, completion percentage, yards per attempt, all that good stuff. How have you seen him kind of grow and develop as a passer this year as he's maybe gotten more comfortable in this offense?
Yeah. Well, I was really impressed with the way he threw the ball, you know, a year ago and the development then. I think now it's just his comfortability in the offense and being able to make the reads really quick and see things a little bit faster. But you look at his mechanics, and I think those have even improved, you know, from a year ago. He gets the ball out really quick. I mean, his footwork's good on his drop backs and all the things we're asking him to do. And he's putting the ball in good places. And he was off a little bit on Saturday. Some of his throws were high, and he has a tendency to sell the ball occasionally when he does miss. But I think mechanically, I think Coach Jasper and Coach Cronk done a great job in developing him as a passer. He's, I think that's the part, Mitchell, that has impressed me the most about him is I didn't, when he was a freshman, I didn't think he threw the ball well enough to play for us, and so to see the way he's throwing it now is pretty impressive.
Yeah, for sure. I wanted to ask you just about this league this year. You
Yeah.
guys are one of, I think, 5 teams in the American that have at least 5 or more wins.
Mhm.
I'm editorializing a bit here, but it feels like the winner of this league is probably in pole position for the playoff. Just how tough is this league this year as you kind of look at the landscape
Yeah.
and you do your scouting and that sort of thing?
Yeah. Yeah. It's tougher than it was a year ago, I think for sure. There's a ton of talent in this league. And then, a lot of the coaching changes that happened in the offseason, there's some really, really good coaches. And you're already seeing teams that made changes. They just um, better coach teams, and the ability to get in the portal too and fix some things quickly is helping a lot of those guys as well. And I'd say they lose some people too, but it's a really talented league as far as the players and the coaches. So it's a good league, and you would think that the winner of this league be positioned pretty well to get that spot.
For sure. That's all I got. Thank you.
Yeah.
Coach, a good thing with the defense was I thought the red zone play, they held Temple to a field goal attempt on the first drive, which they missed,
Mhm.
another field goal attempt at the second time, and then Klink got the forced fumble that Job recovered.
Yeah.
So you take some positives away from that.
Sure. Yeah, it was definitely a bright spot. Red zone defense is extremely important, and we've been pretty good about with that last couple of years. And so, yeah, obviously, if we're not good down there, they'll get those stops, and we don't win that game. So, it's always let's force field goals, not touchdowns when we get down there. And so we certainly bent on the way down there, but we're able to find a way to force a field goal, or, like you said, get off the field with Clanks. Way to great play on the quarterback right there.
Scott Wyckoff.
Coach, midway through the season, how do you evaluate the play at linebacker for Job coming in as a starter now as a junior?
Yes, some good, some things we got to get better at. I think there's certain positions where you'd like to be able to rotate guys to keep them fresh. And I think when Job is fresh and he's dialed into the game plan, I think he's a really good player, Scott. I think when he gets tired, we got to be able. And I think Coleman Colley has done a really, really good job. He's played well, and he's continued to get better every week. And so I think we got to find the sweet spot and how many reps those guys are playing, and being able to spell each other. Um, Done some really good things. There's still a lot of room for improvement, at that position. And that's one of the things we're taking a hard look at, and we got to get better across the board. It's not just at might, but Joe's done some really, really good things, and I think he got a chance to be a really, really good player. There's some things we got to get better at for sure, and we got to help him with some things as well from our end.
What does it mean for you and your staff to have someone like a Colin Ramos there helping in the development of a player like that, being so close to the time they played together? Most programs, their best players are off to the NFL.
Yeah. No, it's certainly great to have him around. As a guy that played a ton of snaps for us, and he's busy helping run the scout team, do all this kind of stuff. So he's not doing a lot of assistant coaching with our linebackers right now. But I'm sure, he gives words of advice and encouragement to those guys. I know he does. But, he's been great and been great in his role as a TAD for us.
How do you like having the TADs around? That's something you didn't have at other schools. How do you like that dynamic here?
No, I think it's great. It's nice, these guys, because they've been through it. They know what it's all about. And we ask a lot of those guys. I mean, those guys work really hard. They work a lot of long hours. They get a completely different perspective, as TADs from when they were players. But they take a lot of pride in what they do, and they've all been great. And it's always great to have, when your seniors leave, it's kind of sad. But when you get to keep them around one more year and just be around them, it's always good.
Have a good week.
Thanks, Scott. You too.
Tim Nolan.
Coach, your program 7th in the nation in fourth down completion percentage. How fun is it to, maybe not fun, but just reassuring to know that your team just continues to come up with the big play when they need it most?
Yeah, we've done a great job on third down and fourth down. Really, the way you kind of got to look at it is, third and 7, if you get 6 or you get 5 and you get yourself in a fourth and manageable, in a go situation, that's a positive. And I think we've been, exceptional in that area, not just on fourth down, but third down, right? Coach Chronic sequencing his play, understanding what he needs to get. You don't always have to get all of it on third down, right? You want to get yourself into. You'd love to pick up a first down, but if you don't, you want to make sure you're in a position where you're in a fourth and go, right? In a manageable way. And he's done a really good job of doing that this year.
Earlier this year, we got a chance to talk with PJ Volker about how he kind of decompresses on Sundays after a game. Figure with the bye week, I'd see, do you have any sort of plan with him? It's film study with his daughters. What do you do to kind of take a break, even though you're in the thick of it in season?
Yeah, try to spend as much time with my family, as I can. Tim, I got a 4 and a 6-year-old at home, and you don't get to see them a whole lot during the season. So for us, there's work we got to get done on Sunday, but we don't have office hours. Which is a pretty unique deal in college football on Sundays. So guys get their stuff done on their own time. So there may be a Sunday where I go in at 6 in the morning and get the things I need to get done, spend the rest of the day with my family. But it's usually spend time with them, and we're able to go see the Ravens game. Took my son to an NFL game yesterday, his first one. Had an absolute blast, and so just getting to do that, that's my biggest decompression.
Love it. Thank you.
Got him.
Wags.
Injuries. You were without Justin Ross and Shane Reynolds, which I was somewhat surprised that they weren't able to go. And then with some of the guys that have been out, obviously Luke Hutchinson. Can you kind of tell us where you are injury-wise?
Sure. Should have both the guys that you mentioned back, Shane and Justin Ross. Hutchinson's going to be a little bit longer. Who else did you ask about, Wags? Vic Listorti's back practicing.
Yeah, I saw he was not
100%.
on the report. Yeah. Is he cleared to play?
Vic? Yes. Yeah. And I thought he had a good week of practice last week. It was really his first full week back. And so the bye week's going to be great for him, too. Can he just get cranked back up? Vic's is a good player for us, and he can help us. But yeah, Shane will be back, and so will Justin Ross. And
then the guy that was injured earlier in the season, but has not been on the injury report, but we haven't seen much of, is Marcus Blazard. Mm-hmm. Is that just because Mark Anthony Parker's playing so well, you don't want to take him off the field much, or I don't know?
No, we'd love to be able to spell Mark Anthony's playing too many snaps right now. I think Mark Anthony's a really, really good player. But to ask him to play 70 snaps is probably too much. And so there's Marcus Blazard and Nolan McCamey are behind him at will. And those guys are kind of splitting those reps. Really need one of those guys to step forward. And Marcus nursed a hamstring all the way through camp, and but he's starting to come along, starting to play better. Obviously, want him to be a factor on special teams and be able to feel good about putting him in the game and giving Mark Anthony a blow. And Blazer's played a lot of snaps for us. And he's got potential to be a good player too. Need him to keep coming along.
And the kicking game as a whole, I mean, Joe asked about Carlson, who's just was added to the Ray Guy Award watch list, but he had punting well all season. But then now that you've told Gossett just kick the damn ball into the end zone, he does it every time.
Right.
And like you mentioned, Kirkwood with a rear long 48-yard field goal. That's good. Yeah. That's good kicking game.
Yeah, I've been super pleased with our kicking game the last 2 weeks. Prior to that, I had a lot of concerns, but I think we've settled into some things. And those guys, all three of those guys, the last 2 weeks have been phenomenal. So excited about that.
Wyatt Copeland.
Cody's touchdown from the first half stands out, but what's impressed you most about the consistency and toughness he brings snap to snap as a senior?
It's the toughest kid on a football team. One of the hardest workers on our football team. And he's a really good player. I hate that he's had trouble staying healthy, but he's a guy that plays hurt, battles through injuries, is an ultimate team player. I mean, he's a true soldier, and we're a better football team when he's on the field. I know that, and can't say enough good things about Cody Howard. I think he's a really, really good tight end. He's one of those guys that you got to manage during the week to get him to game day on Saturdays, but does everything he possibly can to help the football team. And he's a guy that could care less if he gets the catch. he takes just as much pride in the way that he blocks and he does catching the football and other things. I mean, he epitomizes what Navy football is all about. Can't say enough good things about Cody Howard.
What have you learned about the 7 defensive starters, first-time starters on the defense, and how they continue to embrace the opportunity to continuously get better each week, despite how young they are?
Just there's no experience like game experience, and every new starter, there's things you learn in practice. You obviously get better, but there's things that happen in a game that you can't replicate in practice. And I think those guys are learning and growing along the way. We certainly had growing pains, Wyatt. But all those guys, they do things the right way. They work the right way. They prepare the right way. And I think that we're getting better in certain areas, for sure. But anytime you're breaking 7 new starters in, right? It's and a lot of young guys, right? I think we had 5 sophomores start on Saturday, and so in our program, Wyatt, that's like being a redshirt freshman. Right? We don't redshirt guys here, so a lot of those guys didn't play at all as freshmen, or if they did, it was a few snaps on special teams, or in Mark Anthony's case, he was our backup will and played a decent amount of snaps, but there's no substitution for game reps and experiencing that. But you see the growth, throughout the season, and those guys, we just got to continue to get better, and we got to continue as a coaching staff to understand those guys are young players and try to help them every way that we can.
In a week like this, how do you emphasize the importance of watching film for them? How do you see them continue to implement feedback on tackling? I know you mentioned that's still a developing concern. How do you see them implementing that feedback?
Yeah, we're always going to attack the fundamentals, regardless of bye week or not. But a bye allows you to maybe spend a little more time on those things. Right? We're more focused on us than we are our opponent in the bye week, and we'll get a loose plan, game plan ready for FAU. But there's some things that we got to go get better at, and the things that we do and how we're doing them. And so it's a good opportunity to do that. You talk about looking at some personnel changes and things like that. It's just a great opportunity for those guys to go get reps and for us to settle in on some things. So another great reason to have a bye week.
Have a good week.
We got 3 minutes left. Mitchell, you good? Anyone have a quick one for Coach? Wags, you always do.
I always do. Well,
Scott raised his hand too, Strauss.
I know.
Already fire season in college football. Are you surprised more and more? I mean, James Franklin's won a lot of games at Penn State, and then obviously in the American, it started already with Coach Dilfer. Tough business, huh?
I didn't know that about Coach Dilfer. First time hearing about that. When did that happen?
Yesterday, I believe.
Yeah, last night.
Yeah,
look at your text from me.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Strauss.
That's okay.
Been in meetings all morning.
I know.
Yeah, Wags, it's a great profession, but it is a tough business. It's a tough business, and a lot of things that as a head coach, you only have control over so much. At the end of the day, you're putting your livelihood in the hands of 18 to 20-year-old, 22, 23-year-old young men, and a lot of moving parts to it. But it's a tough profession, and you hate to see it happen to anybody, but it's part of it. It's what, we signed up for that, and, we're evaluated, seems like, solely primarily on our wins and losses and not some of the other things that are important, sometimes. But at the end of the day, you got to produce, and you got to win. You got to win games, but it's tough. I hate to see it. And I think a lot of Trent. I really do. I think if you look at the win-loss record, that's one thing, obviously, and I know that's really important. But the things that he's done there in the community in Birmingham and community service and all the things that his players are doing, and I know he cares about his players and develops them the right way and all those things. It's tough.
All right. Thanks a lot, Coach. Thanks, everybody.
Sorry, Wyckoff.